It has been an interesting first week in the federal election campaign. We're joined by one of our BCN contributors, Brian Lilley. And Brian, why don't we start off by talking about Maxime Bernier? He finally gets his way and say with an invite to the debates.
He's been invited to the official government sanctioned leaders debates on October 7th in English, October 10th in French. Mad Max gets his say. That was my headline on it when it was announced the other day. Of course, that's one of the nicknames that he encourages, that he uses. I'm not insulting the man that I've known for more than 10 years at this point when I say that. He and the People's Party are polling at about 1 to 2% nationally when you look at some polls, but he made the pitch that he should be allowed into the debates. He said, "Look, we're running candidates in almost every riding across the country, more than 90% of the ridings. We think that we have a shot at winning several seats. Here's our party structure. Here's our membership. Here's our fundraising." And after reviewing, the Leaders Debate Commission, this organization set up by Justin Trudeau, and the Liberal government said, yes, okay, you can get in. Now, I don't want to give anyone the impression that the Leaders Debate Commission is a partisan group. It includes David Johnston. He's the head of it. He used to be the Governor General of Canada, appointed by Stephen Harper, probably a bit more on the Liberal side, but appointed by a Conservative. It includes Deborah Gray, the first Reform MP ever elected. It's got people across the political spectrum on it. So I don't want anyone thinking that, because there's been some claims, well, this was done to help Trudeau. Jagmeet Singh of the NDP and the Conservative Party War Room both immediately attacked this decision and said it was the wrong way to go. I would agree with them that Bernier should not be in the debates, except for this one fact. We allowed Elizabeth May into the debates years ago. My view, Paul, is that if you're not a recognized party, we have so many fringe parties running in different parts of the country that the leaders debates could become a complete sham. You would have to rent a hall to house the leaders, never mind the audience watching the debate. But we allowed Elizabeth May in years ago before she met any of the criteria that they've now set. So you've got to kind of try and turn around and extend the same invite to Maxime Bernier. I spoke to Bernier yesterday. He was ecstatic at the idea that he was getting into the debate, and he hopes that the other debates, like the Monk debate on foreign affairs or the TVA debate on French television, that's not an official one, he hopes that they extend invitations to him now as well.
It'll be interesting to see. He'll definitely make it more entertaining, for sure.
Well, less predictable, right? Less
Yeah.
predictable would be the thing to say.
Okay, but still, again, polling that low, being in the debates is not going to get him to be prime minister, I don't think. Now, the party leaders making all kinds of promises, some of them pretty expensive promises to the voters. Now, the latest federal figures that came out today from the finance department, showing us a little bit of an empty side to the piggy bank, huh?
Yeah, well, all the leaders are out there making promises. Jagmeet Singh just announcing, free dental care for everyone, free pharmacare. The Conservatives announcing a tax cut, and the Liberals promising more daycare spaces and a cut in your fees. And so all of these promises being made to get your vote. But there's no money left in the piggy bank because the finance department says that we ended the fiscal year that finished on March 31st. We ended it $14 billion in the hole. Now, if you remember, that was supposed to be the year that we balanced the budget.
Yeah.
In the last election campaign, Justin Trudeau promised, he said, three small deficits of $10 billion a year. And of course, they were between $19 and $30 billion over those 3 years. Now it's $14 billion. According to another report by the finance department, unless there are changes made in how we're spending money, we will be in deficit until 2040. I think I'll be retired by then. I hope to be retired by then. But then again, broadcasters and writers, we never really go away. So maybe not.
All right, yeah, it doesn't look that promising financially, right? So something needs to change, and I guess we'll find out with this election if something changes or not. But what are some of the promises that are sticking out for you so far in this election?
Well, everyone is pretty much trying to focus on issues around affordability, the cost of living, trying to make life easier for you. The NDP and the Conservatives are hammering that message harder than the Liberals are. Because the Liberals, the first few days of the campaign, they weren't really putting out policy. They were attacking the other guys, and we'll get into that in a minute, perhaps. But they were attacking the other guys and talking about how good, we've never had it so good, Paul. Unemployment's low. Well, not if you're in northern Alberta, right? Not if you're in certain parts of the country, it's not low, but maybe it is in other parts of the country. That's always a dangerous message to try and run on. But the Conservatives, their slogan is it's time for you to get ahead. The NDP, their slogan is in it for you. And they're trying to hammer home on saying, we will make your life more affordable. So the NDP have said they'll bring in legislation to cap internet and cell phone bills because Canada has some of the highest rates, especially on when it comes to mobile phones. The Conservatives, they have promised that they will make maternity leave tax free. They will bring in a universal tax cut. They're going to lower the lowest rate right now on your first $47,000 of income. You pay 15% tax rate on that. They're going to lower it to 13.75 over a couple of years. So that will, they say, for an average two-family income making average salaries, which would be a little over $50,000 a year, you're going to see savings of about $850. So it's promises like that the parties are making, trying to appeal to your family budget. As one friend put it, they're aiming at the CFO of the family. And guess what, Paul? That's not you. That's mom at home trying to crunch the numbers and figure out how to make the budget stretch.
Okay, yeah, it has been a big thing, recurring, it seems, the whole affordability, because we're all, yeah, looking at this at the end of the month compared to, let's say, a couple of decades ago where, man, it seems like money is tighter, right? My wages aren't going up as fast as the cost of living. So it's a real issue for sure. Now, you've done some polling here as well. The polls showing that Canadians are a little maybe concerned about the economy, as you just mentioned, and specifically, you just touched on it here, that women don't feel that they're getting ahead. So,
Yeah.
the different messages here that you've just been talking about. Are we seeing any polling numbers specifically on the affordability part of it?
When it comes to, do you feel like you in your personal financial situation are better off than you were 4 years ago? Ronald Reagan in the 1980 US presidential debates famously looked into the camera as he was debating Jimmy Carter and said, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Well, politicians around the world have been using that question for years. And so, I partnered with DART and the Toronto Sun, and we went into the field and we said, all right, do you feel better off? And, it's interesting on the grand scale of the Canadian economy, things seem more positive. But when you ask about people's personal situation, they get a little darker. And especially for women, women are more likely to say, no, I'm not getting ahead. Affordability is down. Things cost more. Money's not going up. Things are it's getting tougher to get by. And that's why specifically for the Conservatives, they have their message targeted at that demographic because Conservatives, and this is poll after poll, Conservatives tend to lead among male voters. Liberals tend to lead among female voters. Well, right now, the Conservatives and the Liberals are tied with women.
That is interesting. Okay.
Among women, Conservatives and Liberals are tied in several polls, not just the guys that I work with, but in other polls as well. And so, if the Conservatives can make these pitches with these affordability claims, there's only two parties at this point that have the possibility of forming government. It will be the Liberals or the Conservatives. And at this point in the campaign, I would say it would be a minority government either way. But if the Conservatives can say to enough women, look, we get you. We understand that affordability is an issue and we're going to make your life more affordable, then they have a shot at winning the election. The Liberals are not, out of tune with this, and they're trying to make that pitch as well. It's going to be a question of who makes the pitch successfully.
Okay. Yeah, we'll watch that with great interest. Wow. Now, as in every campaign I've ever seen, there's certainly attack ads and so forth, some mudslinging from all the parties, specifically, past statements, or social media posts, and you're friends with so and so, boy. Is that going to keep going the entire way through this campaign, or is it going to calm down a bit? What do you think?
I think we're going to start to see it calming down. We saw a lot of this in the first week as all the parties released what they call their oppo research. You're doing research on your opponents and trying to find all the dirt and who said what when and have they distance themselves from those statements. And so that was going on in the first week, and everybody got little shots in at other candidates. And I think one of the latest is Elizabeth May making some strange comments about Dunkirk and the Second World War. But at the end, it was the conservatives turning around and saying, let's talk about the liberal candidate from Papineau. Every time they were asked about this became their response. Let's talk about the liberal candidate from Papineau, who is, of course, Justin Trudeau, the prime minister. And they said, look at all the things. He's broken the ethics laws twice. He's done this, he's done that, and he wouldn't pass anybody's vetting. So let's talk about his record. That seemed to calm things down. We'll see if it bubbles up again. Maybe if there's another eruption of one sort or another, we'll see.
Okay, yeah. Now, as you look at the electoral map across Canada, there seems to be a trend here, that at least according to the polls, that the East is leaning Liberal, the West leaning Conservative. No surprise there. Ontario and BC up in the air, right? And that's probably where this is going to be decided. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and I never know whether to include BC as part of Western Canada or not. I mean, they're off on their own.
Yeah.
Once you cross the Rockies, it's a different measure than basically though from Manitoba through Saskatchewan and Alberta, the Conservatives hold a solid lead, and they're going to take the overwhelming majority of the seats in all three of those provinces. In Atlantic Canada, the Liberals are going to take the majority, but not all the seats. Last time they took every seat in Atlantic Canada, all 32. I don't see that happening now, but they will take the majority. They're going to take a solid number in Quebec. And that leaves the election coming down to two provinces and really almost two cities, that being Toronto and Vancouver, or the greater Toronto area and the greater Vancouver area. So, it's people in Western Canada will often tell me, Paul, and they're angry, oh, the election doesn't matter. Well, no, it's that, the far east of the country and the middle west of the country, they've made up their minds and they're solidly behind, opposing parties. It's that BC and Ontario are up for grabs. To a degree, Quebec is as well. I would not be surprised to see the Bloc Québécois have a resurgence in this election and pick up some seats there. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Conservatives pick up extra seats there as well. So Quebec is a little bit in play, but really it's Ontario and it's British Columbia, and it's those suburban seats. They're all fighting for the same pool of votes and trying to slug it out that way.
And again, the fascinating part of this election is, Green Party. Boy, if they get momentum and keep it going, who knows if they get some breakthroughs in some of these areas like BC or maybe on the East Coast and so forth. Minority government, boy, that really makes...
And those are their two best hopes, is British Columbia and Atlantic Canada at this point. I don't really see them. We've had one Green elected provincially in Ontario, and I'll be visiting that riding shortly, Guelph, Ontario. I'll be visiting there to see, do they have a shot federally? Maybe having the Green Party leader for the province of Ontario elected might give them a boost for the federal side, and we'll see. But outside of BC and Atlantic Canada, I don't see a lot of upside for them yet.
Well, let's switch gears here out of, I guess it's still with politics here. It's lots of speculation around the RCMP arresting one of their own here, a top intelligence official, espionage charges. This is a guy with access to some fairly high-level classified material.
Yeah, this was a man named Cameron Ortez. I believe he's 37 years old, one of the highest ranking officers when it comes to the issue of intelligence. And according to various reports, he may have been involved in trying to sell some material to organized crime or other groups that would be interested in having that. Well, why is that significant? It's everything from the ability of Canada and its Five Eyes allies, that would be the United States, New Zealand, Australia, and Britain, to take on organized crime or take on terrorism or take on, whatever type of threat that we are facing. And was he compromised in some way? Was he selling the information? Hopefully they were able to find out that he was not able to sell the information before they were able to take him down. If not, if he was able to sell that information, this is a man that had access to who Canadian undercover operatives were, who some of our allied undercover operatives were in all sorts of situations. He had access to information that the officers working the cases didn't always have. So this could be a major issue for Canada's security, and it's something that's causing problems with our Five Eyes allies. Although I do want to point this out, this came about because of a joint investigation with the FBI in the United States, and they found someone and they were able to flip him, and he then informed on Ortiz. That's what we're told. So, was it someone inside the American security establishment? Was it somebody on the outside that was trying to buy from him? There's a lot of questions that still need to be answered on this
Yeah,
file.
but it is a very serious issue, as you point out. Yeah, lots of potential fallout from this one. Thank you so much, Brian, again for your insight into these matters.
Thank you.